I went to art school in his shirts, his old jackets. It upset me when the picture went badly, and he stabbed himself in the leg with the end of his paintbrush. I just had to lie there while he shouted and hurt himself. When it went well, he conjured a marvelous excitement under the bright lights, all the stories he told me, his escapades with aristocrats and villains in London, of his nurse, and the legendary glimpse of Hitler in Berlin before he came over, the songs he sang to keep me entertained. He knew by heart Hilaire Belloc's cautionary tales, Prufrock, and Shakespeare's best sonnet, My Mistress's Eyes Are Nothing Like the Sun, a poem he recited so many times it stuck in my head and is still there to sustain me when I need to sleep and I can't sleep. I never got tired of listening to it, even the times he rewrote the last couplet off the top of his head for his own reasons without even knowing it. I shared his pleasure in the celebration of the unpoetical attributes of the beloved mistress, even as I cringed in mild embarrassment. She was so rough and yet so adored. Although there was a poem he recited once too often as I lay there with my eyes half hidden under his scrutiny, by the Earl of Rochester, called Written Under Nellie's Picture, about Nell Gwynn. It went something like this. She was so exquisite a whore that in the belly of her mother she placed her cunt so right before her father fucked them both together. He loved Flaubert above all other writers, and was drawn to his letters in particular, as well as the letters and diaries of Kafka, the stories of Maupassant, Prufrock and other Eliot poems, Nietzsche after Francis Bacon, and the Edward Muybridge books of photographs, another enthusiasm that came through Francis. He told me that there were absolutes in art. Nothing was relative, and loathed the idea of self-expression. He referred to Sigmund as my grandfather, and knew some of the jokes out of jokes and their relation to the unconscious, but was not himself conscious of Freud's theory about Oedipus. He thought a person ought to be medically trained to perform psychoanalysis, that it took no heed of the lifespan and was shameful if you found yourself on the receiving end of it. I used to leave the studio after work and descend the stairs with so much stuff buzzing in my head I could hardly contain myself. I have forgotten any confusion or upset I might have experienced. As I remember my descent, I was always elated, senses heightened, ready to take on anything under his influence. The studio, on the 5th floor of a converted house in Holland Park, felt almost too private, the unusual arrangement of the doors into the flat adding to the sense of a closed world. The doors, 2 featureless panels of wood covered in fawn-coloured baize, were hung back-to-back in the doorway at the top of the communal staircase and hinged at opposite sides of the opening, a defensive system designed by my father to double his privacy and keep himself safe, the muffled panels pressed together when locked, no more than the thickness of a sheet of paper between them. Often I had the feeling I had just missed somebody as I arrived, or that another person would turn up on my departure, the day models and night models scheduled not to cross over because everything was secret and everybody must be kept apart. Sometimes there were clues, an unfamiliar blouse over the back of the bathroom chair, a cigarette stubbed out on a plate in the kitchen. Once the doors were locked, nobody could get in. Nobody had a spare key. I rather wished somebody might bang on the outer door during a sitting just to stir things up and relieve the tension. When Haagen-Dazs first arrived in the shops from America, he loved the strawberry flavour and used to stand by the freezer in the kitchen, spoon in hand, digging the ice cream out of the pint carton like a teenager. At work, his concentration was complete. I had the luxury and pain of his full attention in the studio. But suddenly he would break off in the middle of a brush stroke, leave me on my own and go into the boiler room to make a personal phone call or place a bet, urgent activities that seemed to pull him away from the painting in the same way as the ice cream, wasting his time and my own. Apart from the racing, he never watched the